My special guest today is a fellow Scouser, Liverpool comedian for 30 plus years, a comedy writer who's written material for legends like Sir Ken Dodd, that was Sir Ken Dodd singing there, Bob Monkhouse and Jimmy Tarbuck. He studied military history for over 40 years, which has led to a second career as an author. It's my pleasure to welcome to the show today Mr. John Martin. John, how you doing, mate?
Yo, it's lovely to talk to you, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I've no idea what
It's been a while.
the time difference, but it was lovely hearing, the magnificent Ken Dodd there, of course.
Well, I want to talk about Doddy a little bit later, but I wanted to bring you onto that for sure, because I know you were close friends. John, you started out as a comic on the old Enterprise Allowance Scheme, the old £40 a week programme, which I did myself actually one time, which set you up. Yeah, I did it myself. Yeah,
well,
yeah. Set up as a singer.
£40 a week. I wish I was earning that much now, Joe.
So you set up professionally as a comedian on that scheme. I did myself as a singer. So tell us how your career did begin as a comic.
Well, yeah, I mean, my dad used to work the clubs in Liverpool, the nightclubs, as a magician. And he was a brilliant magician, my dad. He could make an audience disappear quicker than anyone, my dad. And he was also a ventriloquist. He did some of that. And it's very unfair, really, that ventriloquism is the only word in the English language that you can't say without moving your lips. Tough word, ventriloquism. So, yeah, I grew up, my dad used to work the clubs in Liverpool and the Whittle and places like that. 6 nights a week, he'd be out working all the social clubs as a magician and ventriloquist. And I grew up watching this and was fascinated by it. And that was all I ever wanted to do. And, and I actually, I went to college and stuff. But all the time I was dreaming about wanting to be a comedian. That's all I ever wanted to do. And even as a kid, I used to write jokes down in exercise books and collect them and try and put them in certain orders that I thought they worked best. And I went on for this thing, the Enterprise Allowance Scheme, £40 a week, and just went from strength to strength, and I'm still getting away with it, really, to be honest, Joe, all these years later. Times are so bad, of course, with the lockdown in show business. This is the first time ever that I've been okay, but work has phoned in sick.
Because I remember going for the 40 quid a week thing, and they look at us in our industry like,
of course they do.
Like it's not a profession.
Yeah, and I went to Bootle Job Centre. Bootle is an area in just outside Liverpool. So I went to Bootle Job Centre and said, I want to be a comedian. And the woman said, are you trying to be funny? And I said, well, actually, yeah, I am. And as you say, of course, they don't understand the entertainment industry. It was all for people setting up as window cleaners and small businesses and this,
Yeah. Did you start?
Yeah, I convinced them and got away with it.
You got it. Me too. Here we are today.
Here we are today, putting on weight, getting older, Joe.
So you started on the clubs, right, yourself? The pub and the club circuit back home?
Oh, yeah. Done the clubs for many, many, many years. And done some rough clubs, the kind of places that you'd only run past.
Well, there's no better apprenticeship than Liverpool in our business.
No, I mean, Liverpool audiences are fantastic. Yeah. Liverpool audiences for a comedian, have a wonderful sense of humour. Yeah. The problem is that a lot of the audiences are funnier than the comedians. And because Liverpool is known for having this pedigree all the way through years, even before Doddy, there was people like Arthur Askey and Ted Ray and all these wonderful, wonderful comedians.
Yeah.
So to become a professional comedian and survive as a professional, you kind of had to learn pretty quick and it certainly sorts out the wheat from the chaff.
I remember working with you at the Grange in Halewood.
Now, look, before we go any further, I never retain money if this is where this is
going. The Grange in Halewood was a pub, and I remember doing a benefit night for the Hillsborough families just days after the tragedy. I was on. There was a load of us on. And all Liverpool just got together, all the acts and that, and there was, what I mean, people put benefit nights on straight away.
Yeah. I was at Hillsborough, Joe. I was at the game at Hillsborough.
Right.
Yeah. you know, I was there with my brother and a friend, and we got split up and this kind of thing, you know. But fortunately, you know, we were okay afterwards. But I've got to know some really lovely people. There's a lady called Margaret Aspinall, has become a lovely dear friend of mine. She runs the Hillsborough Support Group for Justice. Sue Roberts is the secretary there, and I've got to know them well. But as you say, all them years ago, 1989, we were doing what we could to try and raise funds.
Yeah,
it's typical. That's the beauty of Liverpool and Merseyside, is that, you know, we all pull together. Doesn't matter whether you're red or a blue. We were all the same colour in those days, and we all pulled together as one city. Yeah. And they have done for many, many years, of course, fighting this thing to try and get the truth to come out and trying to get justice and this kind of thing, you know.
And God bless the families to this day. You know, I had George Wilson. You remember George Wilson, the Liverpool actor? He was on the show a few weeks ago talking about, because he was there too. But, yeah, God bless them families. And, you know, never forgotten anyway. The 96, never ever forgotten. Never forgotten.
Never ever. Joe, we love our football, you and I, Joe, of course, don't we?
Oh, we do, yeah.
We love our football. I'm a big Liverpool fan. Well, I'm the size of me now. I'm a big everything fan, to be honest with you. Oh, it's tough, Joe. And, you know, I worked it out, actually, because lately I've been lying low. Well, my bed sags in the middle, so I have to. But I actually forgot to go to the gym today. So that makes it 7 years in a row now. But yeah, I've put on a lot of weight. I really have. And you know, I went to the doctors recently. I said, you know, can you give me something to stop me sleepwalking? And he said, no, you need the exercise, in all honesty. I joined Weight Watchers as well, you know, and the first question they ask you when you join online, the very first question they ask is, will you accept cookies? Whoa, it sounds like my kind of organization. Yeah, I've put the weight on, Joe. I actually used to be twins, but I ate the other fella. So.
You went on to perform on the cruise ships aboard the biggest ocean liners in the high seas. And talk about a small world. You worked with last week's guest, Paul Beck. He was on the show last week. Paul's my first boss.
Great mate of mine, Paul. Yeah.
Good guy.
He was a cruise director. He's a great fella, Paul. Yeah. And then he went on to working on the shopping channels on television.
Yeah. Youngest cruise director in history, age 22. He's still the youngest cruise director in the world at age 22.
I worked QE2 with him. I worked on Cunard a lot with Paul.
Yeah. The first ship I was on is called a Sea Wing. Paul done 2 seasons on that. You've done a Sea Wing, yeah? And after the second season, he went to the QE2, then to the Queen Mary. But, you know, I was on the Sea Wing 20 years ago. No. And, you know, I mean, talking about Liverpool comics, well-respected comics like yourself, I've had the pleasure through the years doing the clubs in Liverpool, working with many Liverpool comics, you know, the late Mickey Finn, Stevie Fay, Jackie Hamilton. And on the Sea Wing, I actually worked with Hal Nolan, great Hal Nolan. We had a great time.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and Joey K. I worked with Joey K too.
Yeah. You know, just before I came onto your radio show, I was on the phone to someone, and we were talking about Joey K. Literally 10 minutes before you rang me.
Well, his son Martin was a good friend of mine. His late son Martin was a great singer. Yeah.
Great comics, wonderful comics. You know, the best friend I ever had in the world was a Liverpool comedian called Al Dean.
I remember Al Dean.
He used to put a red thing on his face, and he'd say a mat, because he's very skinny, Al.
Yeah.
And he'd put this red thing on and say, oh, look, here's my impression of a match. And then he'd whip the red one off and put a black one on and say, now a dead match. and then he'd put a drum cymbal on his head, and he'd say, here's my impression of a drawing pin. All this kind of thing, you know, wonderful.
I'll tell you, I've been watching lately, Tommy Cooper, the old Tommy Cooper clips.
Yeah.
You know,
well, you know, Joe, there's 2 types of comedians. You know, without getting too technical, I think there's 2 types of comedians. There's those who say things funny, and those who say funny things. Just a slight difference, but a world of difference. Wow. Okay. Tommy Cooper would say things funny. He could read the shopping list, and you would laugh because he was saying it. So he would say things funny. On the other side would be a man, a wonderful comedian, sadly no longer with us, Bob Monkhouse. Now, Bob was never a naturally funny man. He could have been a bank manager. He was dressed smart and immaculate. But he would say the most exquisitely funny things. So there's the difference. One says things funny and the other says funny things.
Wow, I remember that.
Sir Ken Dodd is the only person that I've ever seen in my lifetime that would do both to the maximum. He would say things funny and he would say funny things. And he's the only person I've ever seen do both.
Absolute legend. John, your agent is your wife, Jo, right?
Yeah. I get 85% of her money. I call my wife Elliot Ness because overnight she becomes one of the untouchables. She's a terrible cook, Joe. Have I told you this? Oh, terrible cook. My wife is a black belt in cookery. She can kill you with one chop. She said to me the other day, she said, I've made the chicken soup. I said, thank God, but I thought it was going to be for us. Bless her. Bless her. She tries. She does try hard.
Where did you meet Jo? And was she in the business when you met her?
Me wallet, and there she was, She said to me the other night, she said, I'm going to put a little black lace number on for you. And it was Agadoo. No, we met at, she was a special events manager for a major hotel chain.
Right.
And she actually hired me. And now she lowers me, so. Yeah, she hired me for a function and we met there,
So she's always been in the business as an agent?
Yeah. Even as a kid, when she left school, she was a Butland's Redcoat.
Okay.
And then dancer and this kind of thing,
Yeah.
So she's terrific. She's a great, all joking aside, she's a terrific agent. Books a lot of entertainers on cruise ships. Mm-hmm. Some great comedians like Mick Miller, another great Liverpool comedian.
Yeah. The old noddy thing never gets old with Mick, does it?
No, why would it? It's classic.
That's
classic.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And if he didn't do the noddy routine in the show, people would complain.
Yeah.
Even though you say, is that an old joke? No, people actually want to see it,
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Funny, and you know what's coming, but it's still wonderful. Yeah. It's a classic.
John, you're known as a clean comic. You don't need to resort to using bad language or be vulgar, and you're always fresh and current with your material. It's topical comedy, right?
It is, and I don't know when this is going out, Joe. But I see in Jersey today, have you seen the situation recently with Jersey and the French?
Go on.
And the shipping, have you not seen about the ships in Jersey from France?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should, the blockading and things are getting really bad. So much so, the Jersey government are trying to get Bergerac out of retirement. That's how bad it's getting. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a prude, Joe. I'm not saying that my way is the best way or his way is. It's just the way I choose to do my comedy. But I know some wonderful blue comedians, for want of a better term, who make me howl with laughter. It's just I choose not to do that.
I've heard off stage, Chubby Brown doesn't even use a swear word. I've heard he's just a gentleman, yeah.
And on stage, he is the most wonderful clown.
Yeah.
As blue as you come, but absolutely double me up with laughter,
Yeah.
I just choose to do it a different way. That's all, Joe. I'm not saying I'm right and he's wrong, or he's right and I'm wrong. That's just the way your style is. I try and talk about politics in Britain. We've got this Chancellor of the Exchequer. There's a man called Rishi Sunak, and they reckon one day he'll be Prime Minister, and I think one day it'll be long enough.
You've performed for years now, not only on the ships, but sporting dinners, award ceremonies. You've worked for years with so many sporting greats, legendary footballers and boxers. And the late Gary Speed was a very good friend of yours, right?
He was, and his mum and dad are still our best friends. Absolute tragedy what happened. He carried himself so well, Gary, and throughout his career. and represented his country of Wales 85 times. Became manager of Wales.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful one. Hardly ever got booked or told off.
Played for some
just,
great
he
clubs.
carried himself properly, you know.
He was at Leeds, Newcastle, Everton.
Yeah, won the league with Leeds.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
famously won the league. Then he was from Everton. Then he went to Newcastle and Bolton. He went to Bolton and Sheffield United, and he actually became manager of Sheffield United for a short time before Wales came in and took him on for. And he was proud to be the Welsh manager because he's not from Wales. Yeah. He was the only Welsh person in his family.
Really?
His mum and dad and his sister were not born in Wales, and there's only Gary, and he became Wales captain and then Wales manager. Wow. So he was really, and we used to go and watch him play for Wales, and he was so proud.
Yeah, yeah.
Great fella.
God bless him.
Tragedy.
Yeah, it was a tragedy. John, 1993, you entered the World Guinness Book of Records for continuously telling jokes for 101 hours and 39 minutes.
Yeah, officially it's down as the longest time ever without a laugh. Yeah, I did that 4.5 day, well, Monday to Friday, it was non-stop, overnight, you know, even at night. And, you know, I'd go to the bathroom and people would come with me to make sure I carried on telling jokes. And
really?
Yeah, it was not non-stop. We raised a lot of money for charity and for the children's hospice on Merseyside. Okay.
How did it come about? Was it suggested?
It was someone suggested it. A journalist at a newspaper called the Liverpool Echo suggested it, and you know, I agreed to do it. And then halfway, Jordan organised, and I'm thinking, what the hell have I done here? Like, you know, but it's too late to back out then.
That's fantastic. How did you get into writing material for legends like Sir Ken Dodd, Bob Monkhouse, Jimmy Tarbuck?
Well, I've always messed about with jokes, and you know, some people enjoy seeing an engine and taking it apart and putting it back together again. And I'm like that with jokes. I love it to see a joke, and then I try and break it down and see if I can put new words in and change it round. And so I've always loved doing that. Yeah. And I just found that I could find a bit of a formula after a while to write jokes, particularly topical jokes. That was my big thing. And I started off writing for a very famous man in Britain for a radio show called Roy Hood, and he used to have a radio program called the News Hoodlines.
Oh yeah, Roy Hood.
And every week it was all about, you know, what was in the news. A bit like this, Have I Got News for You Now? But the News Hoodlines was a topical show. And so I used to send in all these jokes. Even when I was a kid, I used to send these jokes in when I was at school and trying. And if you got selected, you got £5 or something, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always done that. And then I got to know Doddy and started writing. I wrote a lot of stuff for Doddy. Doddy was the greatest.
I know you were so close friends. How did you actually get to meet him and become involved with writing for him? And he spoke very highly of you too.
He always did, bless him. God bless him. He always did. He spoke about me on the famous Parkinson chat show and other television programs. He spoke about me. Well, my dad used to do the clubs with him. As I mentioned earlier, my dad was a magician, and he did clubs with Doddy. And then when I came into the business, I thought, you know, you got to learn from the best. So I'll go and approach Doddy, and he was just fantastic with me, you know. And he I remember one time he took, I did a show with him somewhere in Liverpool, and I was giving him a lift home. And he was terrible in the car, terrible passenger in the car was Doddy, the worst passenger in the world. I'd be driving and he'd be sat next to me and be slow down. No, watch this car. Oh, there's a bend. Come on, absolute control. Like, he needed control. And I remember saying to him once, I said, Ken, I do know how to drive, you know. He said, I know. He said, it's all the other idiots on the road I'm worried about. And we'd come to a set of traffic lights. I remember we'd come to a set of traffic lights, and they were on red, and then the split second, the lights changed to green. He must have been saving it up and he instantly turned to me and said, "Are you waiting for a colour you like?" So I was giving him a lift home one time, and we got to his house at 3:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. And he said, come in. I said, oh, no, Ken, no, it's 3:30. And then, no, come in. I insist you come. No, Ken, it's 3:30. In, you must come in. So in the end, I came in and we went into his kitchen and he made us a cup of tea. He said, right, I'm going to talk to you about comedy. And he explained all the different types of comedy. He called it is comedy and was comedy, and how to construct a joke and how to break a joke down. And I remember he said to me, he said, never tell a joke. Don't ever tell a joke. He said, sing a joke. You must sing a joke.
Sing a joke.
A joke must have the exact, like a rhythm and a beat to it, like you would sing a song. He said to him, you have to make sure it has not too many words or not enough words or anything. He said, they must have, he said, and the joke must have a beat and a rhythm to it. He said, so never tell a joke, sing a joke.
Wow.
And I always say it was a great honor. It was an honor to write for Dodd. He was a tough taskmaster to write jokes for. You know, he knew what he wanted and he knew how he wanted it and he knew when he wanted it.
Did he ever change things that you gave him? You say you give him some guy, but he
No,
changed things?
No, he wouldn't change it. We'd certainly discuss things and he'd say, okay. Oh, I'm not sure about that. And I'd say, oh, no, try that, Ken, and do this and what, you know, and you know, you'd discuss it, but he wouldn't change it necessarily. But I always say writing jokes for Ken Dodd was an honor that I can only compare to being asked to mix the paints for Van Gogh. That's how big an honor it was for me. So I just adored the man. I idolized the man, still do today. You know, I only spoke to his widow last night. I spoke to Anne. Tarbuck, of course, wrote a lot of stuff for Tarbuck. Great comic, Jimmy Tarbuck's a great. Jimmy Tarbuck, different style to Ken Dodd. Jimmy Tarbuck could take a one-line joke and he'd see it for the first time on a piece of paper. And the skill of Jimmy Tarbuck's big skill was reading that joke on a piece of paper and then telling it as though he'd been telling it every day for 10 years.
Wow.
As though he owned that joke. Yeah. And that takes a bit of doing that. You know, he'd never seen the joke before. He's only read it once. Occasionally, Jimmy would say to me, well, how would you tell this joke? And I'd tell the joke and he'd listen. Okay. But that's a big skill, a different skill set altogether, that joke. You know, to take a joke and then make it sound as though it was his own. Very, very good. Wow. Lot of strength and power. Yeah. Jimmy had.
I still haven't seen Jimmy Tarbuck. I remember seeing Doddy when I was 7 years old at the Empire. I was absolutely blown away as a kid. Yeah. Just the Diddy Man and everything he put together, the energy of the show, even at that age.
All the energy, hours and hours show, you know, and what people don't realize, people say to me, oh, you know, Ken Dodd was famous for his shows lasting a long time, 4 hours. Yeah. But what many people didn't realize was after the show, he'd do another 2 hours backstage. He'd just talk to everyone and you'd be the last one out. You know, people are waiting to lock up and he's still talking.
Well, I've heard stories about the theatre staff going, oh, no, look who's on tonight. We're not going to get on till, you know, all hours, whatever, you know.
No, I think that's a fallacy because the beauty of Doddy is he would sell out a theatre wherever he went. And not a lot of people can do that.
No.
He would sell it out. You put his name on the poster and he'd sell it out.
Fantastic, yeah. Now, the COVID pandemic, it's hit the entertainment business really hard. How's it been for you over the last 12 months or so? I mean, just...
Yeah, it's been terrible. It really has for our industry. And, you know, a lot of people in our industry have had to take second jobs.
Yeah.
I've got a part-time job in a factory making little tiny chess pieces. I'm on nights next week. Yeah, it's been tough. Of course it has. I go travel a lot. Well, act like mine, you've got to be honest. But, you know, as you mentioned earlier, the cruise ships, I used to fly out all the time to cruise ships and I've not flown. It's been that long since I've flown. Virgin Atlantic isn't even a Virgin anymore since I left. But of course, here in Britain, Joe, I don't know what it's like in beautiful, beautiful San Antonio. Yeah. But in Britain, it's all the vaccine, you know. fella rung me the other week. He offered me the jab, and it worried me because I thought he said job.
I just had my first 2 weeks ago. I had my first, not job, jab,
I've had one.
2 weeks ago.
I've had one.
Yeah, but back there, it's 3 months. Is that right? It's 3 weeks here.
Yeah, this massive gap, between having your first and the second. And
Yeah.
12 weeks. Yeah, 3 months.
Yeah, I go back in another week.
My brother had his first jab, and then he was found careering all over the road because he'd had the Vauxhall AstraZeneca.
If you're just tuning in, my special guest today, Mr. John Martin. Pleasure to have him on the show. Thank you so much, John.
Pleasure to be here.
I remember
had a strange day, actually, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
My neighbour said I was a bit of a looker today. Well, the word she used was voyeur. Well, I'm saying. No, I don't have much luck with women. A lady said to me the other week, she said, "Are you John Travolta?" I said, "Listen, madam," I said, "this is fat, not grease."
So you must miss the cruise ships. You must miss the after dinner speakers.
Oh yeah, we all do.
Because it's been
I travel the world on them,
Yeah.
And my wife's big part of her industry is cruise ships. And
is there any inkling when it's going to go back over there? Because I mean, it's
the problem is you can't do international at the moment. So there's certainly in the summer in Britain, there's an awful lot of ships. There's something like 20 ships or 15 ships going around Britain doing various stops in Britain.
Yeah.
But only for British passengers with British entity. It's all you can do. You can't go international. And presumably, and I'm not up to date with it, but presumably in America, it's going to be a similar thing. You'll have a lot of American ships going from, I don't know, Fort Lauderdale or something, up and down the East Coast or whatever. It's the international thing that's the problem.
That's the problem, yeah. I mean, we all closed down here like everybody else, and we reopened in October. I went back to work October, performing again, and we were at 25% capacity, then 50% capacity with it was one party had to be 6 feet apart from the other party, and we had signs. Then the mayor just made this announcement a couple of months ago. It's like free for all now, yeah.
Really? Well,
yeah.
No problems with it up to the moment, Joe?
Up to now, it's been okay. I'm back to working 5 nights a week.
People wear masks or anything like that?
People are still coming in, but it's not mandatory anymore. It used to be wear your mask when you come in.
Who'd have thought, even just a few years ago, Joe, that you'd be encouraged to wear a mask when you go inside the bank? But in Britain at the moment, we're still all locked down, as it were. You can go to a restaurant outdoor, but of course the weather, we haven't got the weather. It's not like the beautiful San Antonio river walks or anything, I mean, last time we went to a restaurant, my wife told me off. She said, "You're tipping way too much." I said, "No, I like tipping." She said, "Look, stop tipping. You're tipping too much." And in the end, my chair actually fell over. But yeah, of course, I know you're in San Antonio, Joe. We met up there.
I was just going to say, I remember when you came over. That was
river walks and the Alamo, and
I remember you walking around the Alamo with me. Then we went to the Bonnie and Clyde exhibition, didn't we, at the Buckhorn Museum? Right. I'll tell you what, I was only talking about this the other night to a friend of mine. I was telling him you were coming on the show. And I was telling him about my Geordie mate who was staying. I remember you met him. I said, "Do you know what, John? He knows more history than me, and he's checking out today. And he was staying at your hotel." And I said, he'll show us around more. But I remember you seeing him. Alan comes out with his Newcastle shirt and his Newcastle baseball cap. And you said, "Oh, 2 in army, are you? Yeah. You're outnumbered here, son. 2 Scousers. We're like the Mexicans." I was telling my mate of mine that story the other night, but it was great when you were here. It was good to show you around. That was a good...
No, it was fabulous. We love America. Obviously, I know we both speak English, but there's different versions. I remember when I was in San Antonio, I had a problem in a shop. I went to pay by my credit card, And when the lady said to me, "Strip down, facing me," I kind of misunderstood. No, San Antonio, you're so lucky. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Them river walks, everyone in the world should see.
Yeah, it's getting back now because we just had Paddy's Day in March and it was absolutely crazy down there. They died. The River Green, the riverboat parades were back, and yeah, it was a busy. I actually played 1 p.m. till 8 p.m. that day.
Wow.
And on that day, I'll just perform Irish music.
You didn't do 101 hours, 39 minutes, Joe.
I didn't,
so,
mate, no. But I did. There was Guinness involved, but not the World Guinness Book of Records, unfortunately. But there was a lot of Guinness involved, you know. Let's talk about.
We can't wait to come back. We can't wait to come back.
Yeah, it'd be great if you could come back. You know, I mean, the thing about San Antonio and Texas in general, the summertime is so hot. I think it was September you were here. It wasn't. I think it was about September. I'm guessing. But anyway, yeah, the summertime is so hot. And normally, my wife and little girl, they'll go back to Liverpool for 6 weeks, and they can't this year because of the travel. So now we've got to find things for my little girl to do for like 3 months. It's 3 months the kids are off here, and that's a lot to do. You know, a lot of keep.
Well, we love all Texas. You know, I've spent quite a bit of time in Dallas.
Yeah.
Because I've written books, you see, Joe.
That's what I was going to talk to you. You've got a passion for military history.
All history, really. Well, you can tell that from some of the jokes, I think. I love all history.
You've written 3 books. Well, tell us first about your first book.
I've actually written 4, but the fourth one isn't out yet.
Okay, well, there's 3 out there now, isn't it? But tell us a bit about the first one, The Mirror Caught the Sun.
Yeah, for years I've been fascinated. Even as a kid, I read in a magazine about this World War II operation, a top secret, most secret operation in World War II. And it was about 2 Czechoslovak soldiers who were in Britain. And they were trained and parachuted back to Prague to assassinate a man called Heydrich. And I've been absolutely fascinated by it. And I wrote a little book called The Mirror Caught the Sun. The reason it's called The Mirror Caught the Sun is that that was one of the signals. A guy had a small hand mirror to catch the rays of the sun. And that was one of the signals we believe was used. Heydrich was on his way to be attacked. Yeah. So I wrote that, and it's been very successful. Actually, it's gone all over the world, and you can get it on Amazon. Bit far to go to buy a book, like. But yeah, it's gone literally gone all over the world. And I was involved in a movie called Anthropoid. Great movie with. Do you get Peaky Blinders over there?
Oh, yeah, love it. I've watched the whole.
Yeah, well, Cillian Murphy is in Anthropoid.
He's in that movie, yeah. I must check that out.
He's in the movie. And also a man called Jamie Dornan, who was 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, Jamie Dornan's been in a few things.
Yeah. But when the director rang me up and said, "Oh, we've got the man from 50 Shades of Grey," I thought he was talking about my hair. So I thought we weren't apparently. But yeah, I was out there for some of the filming, and it was marvelous.
I like to see
a great
that.
Movie.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. Anthropoid, it's called. Anthropoid. And the reason it's called Anthropoid is that was the actual code name for this operation to attack Heydrich. It was called Operation Anthropoid.
So you had part in like.
I was involved in it.
You were involved in the making of the movie. Yeah.
I was involved, and also involved later on as well. After the movie was made, I was like an advisor for the press on the historical content, and a couple of times I had to. This was all while it was going on, just before released.
Yeah,
took a couple of journalists to Prague and that kind of thing, you know.
All right.
Yeah, and I even had my very own. Well, I couldn't call it a premiere. They were having a premiere in London, which I went to. But I said, "Oh, all the premieres are in London. Can't we have one in Liverpool?" And they said, "We'll sort it, but you can't call it a premiere." So we had to call it a pre-release screening. But to be fair, they said to me, "Find a cinema in Liverpool, and we'll hire it for you, and we'll pay for the buffet and everything." And they did, and we did it one Sunday afternoon, and I had 40, 50 of my friends there and watched this movie. It was fantastic.
Where did they hire? Where was it in Liverpool?
A place in Bold Street. In fact, I rung a very, very good friend of mine. Is a famous actor in Liverpool called Ricky Tomlinson.
I know Ricky. Yeah. I've heard of Ricky.
And I rung Ricky. I said, Ricky, they're asking me to get I would get a cinema, and he told me this place in Bold Street, and it was fantastic.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I wrote that book. Then I wrote a book called Ambushed, which is 6 different ambushes in history. Custer's Last Stand is one. John Wilkes Booth, who famously assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Heydrich, of course, I mentioned. Bonnie and Clyde is one of the topics, and things like this. I'm absolutely fascinated by John Dillinger, who was really the first FBI public enemy #1 in America. Right. I'm fascinated by it. And of course, a new book that I've just written called Ambush 2. One of the stories is a man called Babyface Nelson, who was in similar gangs alongside John Dillinger. And there's a big connection to San Antonio, particularly with Babyface Nelson.
Yeah, I need to check them addresses out for you. I know you've mentioned it to me. Yeah,
I need to go. I need to go and see them. I need to spend all day just looking at this door. Yeah. It's fascinating. Babyface Nelson used to go to San Antonio quite a bit. Yeah. There was a gunsmith who used to supply them with weapons, and he was in San Antonio. And there was another gang member called Tommy Carroll who shot dead a policeman in San Antonio. A policeman called Henry Perro. Off the top of him, Henry Perro was a policeman, and he was shot by one of Nelson's gang, Tommy Carroll, who escaped actually by running into this gunsmith and running out the back door.
Yeah. Did you know Phil Collins was heavily involved in the Alamo?
Yeah, hasn't he got the biggest collection of Alamo artifacts?
There used to be a place, I'm not sure whether you saw it when you were here, called the History Shop, and it's closed now, but they had the figure of the actual battle, and he'd narrate.
It's called the diorama, and where you press that and the corner lights up.
And he does the narration.
That's right. Is that place closed now?
They closed. I don't know what happened there. Yeah,
closed because of COVID, or
no, they just closed. I don't know what happened. I need to find out. But I don't know what's to do with funding.
We went in there when
we did. Did we go now? Yeah, okay.
You took me in.
That's right.
Literally across the road, if I remember right.
Yeah, right next to the Emily Morgan Hotel. Yeah.
And I wonder if it's just closed because of COVID. It can't.
No, this was beforehand. This was beforehand, and I don't know what happened. I will find out. I'll find out for you. But
you must do, Joe.
Well, yeah, he still comes here. One time, me and my missus went one time to the Alamo, and Phil Collins was in there with all the descendants. So we walked in. He said, "Oh, you've got to have passes to get in." And you can imagine 2 Scousers here trying to get in. So my wife says, well, we're from England, and there was English killed as well. We're interested in the history. She just wanted to see Phil Collins. We're interested in the history and all that. And he said, well, if there's any seats available, anyway, the ranger opened the door and let us in, and we sat down. So they did all the stand-ups of, like, there's a lot of Hispanic people there, obviously, because the Alamo, and they read all the deceased out, and people would stand up. And when I said England, Phil stood up, and there was only 3 of us in there. 2 Scousers and Phil. We didn't get to meet him because he makes a point of not wanting to talk about music or Phil Collins when he's there. He's specifically there for the Alamo. But he's been so many times. In fact, one time I was doing my gig, and these 2 guys come in and sat in the front, throwing $20 bills at me in the tip jar. I had a fantastic night. And at the end of the night, I said, what are you doing here, guys? Are you from Switzerland? We're from Geneva. I said, what are you doing in San Antonio? Well, Phil Collins, pilot and co-pilot. But we've got a couple of days off because he's doing the Alamo stuff and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, funny, isn't it? I'd love to meet him and talk about the Alamo.
Yeah, because that's all he wants to talk about when he's here, apparently, yeah. And I know people who are involved in the reenactments and all that, and they've met him many times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I don't wonder if he's ever written a book, and if he hasn't, he should do.
There is a book. There is a book in the Alamo souvenir shop next to the Alamo. There is a book in there.
Done by him?
It's about his collection. It's about $120, I think. Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing it one time. $120 for a book. Yeah.
I wonder if you can get it in the library.
Scousers' minds, eh? Scousers' minds there.
Great that you and your wife got in now.
We got in, yeah, and he read. He was a speaker, and we were just inside, yeah.
And were you trying to rush in like or anything?
We just tried to.
Apparently, didn't he turn around to your wife and say, "You can't hurry, love"?
Talking about getting your books, John.
Yes.
Is Amazon
Amazon's fine.
That's the best platform. Yeah. But you can go on your website, right? You can get stuff on your website. Yeah, they can
go on my website. I mean, you make me sound like Spider-Man when you say a website. But yeah, I have a couple of websites. John Martin Comedy is one. John Martin Comedy.
Because I know your DVDs are on there as well, and you've got some comedy stuff on there.
Yeah, I do comedy DVDs as well. Yeah. But I think people who are certainly if they're expats living in America, I think they'd be fascinated with. There's a lot of American content in my two books, Ambushed and Ambush 2. Okay. I mentioned Dillinger and Babyface Nelson and Bonnie and Clyde, of course. Bonnie and Clyde was from Texas. They were from Dallas.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of American content in the books. So I think they'd be interested.
Well, local listeners, San Antonio or anywhere in the States, John Martin's book, you can get it.
To Amazon.
Or you can go to Amazon. Yeah.
Ambush.
So it's Ambush 1, Ambush 2. You're saying you're writing a fourth? Is that you've got a fourth one?
Yeah, I'm writing. I've written a book, not out yet, and the book is called "I Want to Be a Comedian, Mr. Tarbuck." That'll be out in about 2 months' time, I think.
Oh right, okay. I look forward to that one. You'll have to sign me a copy of that one, John.
And there's a lot of anecdotes about Doddy and stuff like that in it, and writing for Doddy and writing for Tarbuck. A lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you?
I know. I also talk about being on the Sea Wing.
Oh yeah.
With did you ever work with a magician called Crisco?
No, when I was on it was a Hungarian guy called Richie Magic. In fact, the funny thing about that was nothing against the magician, but I hated them nights, and the reason was we had to work, and I had to sing 3 songs in the magic show.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, backstage the whole time. But you had to be in uniform with your name tag on and backstage and wait half an hour, sing a song, wait another 10 minutes, and then the finale. And I said, can't we just record this? I'm stuck backstage for like... He said, no, because it's in your contract. You actually have to work.
What do you mean you were in uniform? Were you a waiter or something on there? What the hell were you doing?
But we had to have our cruise uniforms on yet and still have a name tag and sit backstage.
Were you on there permanently, like?
Oh yeah, I was in the production team with Paul Beck.
Oh right.
So I was the vocalist. I was the male vocalist in the show, in the production shows.
Now at least we know where the noise was coming from.
I walked into that one day, didn't I?
We finally identified it. Yeah, there used to be a magician I used to work with called Crisco. Lived on the Isle of Wight, still lives in the Isle of Wight. Oh, he was funny.
Yeah.
On the Sea Wing, if you remember, Joe, there used to be, for some bizarre reason, he must have used to sell it up there a lot. There used to be a lot of Scandinavians
there was.
On the Sea Wing. And it was hard, terrible for a comic, but yet, I got round it and stuff.
Yeah.
But Crisco used to go on, he used to have wild manic hair, and he'd come on with a pith helmet and shorts, and they really didn't take to him, and he'd get angry. Get angry. He was doing one show one time on the Sea Wing, these Norwegians didn't take to him at all. And suddenly 4 people from the front row, Norwegians, stood up and went to walk out. And Crisco, in an instant, said, for my next trick, I need 4 people to stand up and walk out. Oh, thank you. Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah, because that was part of Sun Cruises, wasn't it? It was the Sunbird, the Sun Dream. Yeah.
Done them all. And then I used to do, when they were in the summer from Palma, Mallorca. Yeah. On every Saturday, there'd be 2 ships, and I'd walk across the gangway and get on the other one and all that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of tours. They were great times. You look back, and the cruise ships today are magnificent, with HDMI televisions, movies on demand. But we had a little radio in our cabin. We thought it was fantastic, because it was all new to us. And it was new to most of the passengers. No, You know, cruising wasn't a popular thing then. It was only for rich people, really.
I used to love
And
them
airport.
nights. It was
fantastic.
I mean, the thing was, we were the production team, so we'd be working most nights, and the nights off we get is when they're flying. We call them flying, so the comic and they'd have a cabaret vocalist on. So I used to love them nights. I used to go to every show.
Yeah,
and watch
Paul
the show.
Fredericks was another one. Do you ever remember a singer called Paul Fredericks?
It rings a bell.
Yeah, a guy with a beard. Great. Super. He's a great mate of mine, Paul Fredericks.
Did you ever, the guy I used to hang out with all the time, he'd come on board 2 or 3 times during the season, was Ivor Richards. Do you know Ivor Richards at all?
I don't know.
Ivor I think he was,
comic?
Yeah, he's a Liverpool comic.
Yeah, the problem was that when I was a comic, they didn't have other comics so I kind of missed them. We were...
Well, I had a great time, as I said earlier, with Hal Nolan, when he was on the ship, me and him, because obviously 2 Scousers together. So we get off in the port and we hang out, and we go out. And same with Joey Kay, we'd go out.
Oh, a wonderful comic, Hal Nolan. Sadly, again, like many of them, no longer with us. You know.
I know, he really was.
Missed forever. He left his mark.
Yeah. Did you do anything virtual during the lockdown, John?
Nothing to do with you.
Because I did.
I see what you mean. Sorry. I thought you were talking about something completely different. Yeah, I did some shows. And it was very difficult, of course. I did some shows by this thing, Zoom.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what it was in Liverpool. That was a lolly ice, a nice lolly. But I did a show for a company in Gibraltar, and it's hard because with this thing, Zoom, when one person talks, the others have to be muted because when they talk, it cuts you out. Right. So because I was doing a stand-up spot, all the other microphones of all these people from this company had to be on mute. And I could just see the whole computer was all little squares of their faces. So I'm doing a stand-up comedy show to no laughs, to no sound at all.
Crazy.
You just... which I was used to because I did a show with you in Highton once. But no, very difficult, very difficult.
I did 29 weeks of Facebook live streams every Friday night from the kitchen, and everyone tuned in. Thank God.
Of course, social media is massive now, Joe. I only the other week I said to my wife, I'm going to live my life like as though I'm on Facebook, and I did. I'm walking around and I had some followers. 2 of them were the police.
John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and joining us today.
I'll come back for the second half as well. Have I just been talking non-stop? Joe, can I get cash this time? Would it be?
You want cash this time, yeah? Okay.
Yes, please. Average being here, Joe. It's been wonderful. No, it has. It's been wonderful, Joe, and great to see you. You're looking... have you been ill? No, you're looking great, Joe.
John Martin, everybody, and you can get his books on there.
Yeah,
John
Walmsley, everybody, more to the point.
Absolute pleasure, mate, and thank you so much for your time.
Man. Top man. No, that T-shirt you're wearing, top man, is it? It's top man.
John Martin, we're going to leave it there, and I thank you so much. Best of luck with your books. Hope to see you back on stage soon, making us laugh again like you have done today. You've been an absolute pleasure today. It's been a pleasure to have you, and love to the family, love to your wife.
Joe. And all the very best to everyone over in wonderful San Antonio.
And over there too. Thank you, John. Appreciate you,
Cheers,
buddy.
Joe.
See you, mate.
Bye,
Thank
buddy.
you.